Hello everyone, Lee Diffie with you here from Oran Park. Welcome to round 8 of the Championship Series. It's exciting times at the moment because this place here, Oran Park, has hosted either an Australian Touring Car round or V8 Supercar round for the past 35 years in succession. They've had title deciders, they've had gripping rounds. Today won't be any different because this championship is well and truly alive. Let's take a look at the points. Marcus Ambrose is still the points leader. This time last year though, it was Jason Bright, but Ambrose has a 105-point buffer over Stephen Richards and then back to his teammate Russell Ingall. Kelly and Scaife, the HRT pair, still very much in this. So too Lowndes, Tander, Johnson, Murphy and Seaton, both DJR Falcons in there, and Murph trying to stay alive in his super cheap machine. Well, for 7 consecutive years, the Holden Racing team owned this place. But the last 2 years, Stone Brothers Racing has changed that, and that trend is continuing as we take a look at the results of the top 10 shootout. Marcus Ambrose, fastest in practice, fastest in qualifying, fastest in the shootout. But Rick Kelly made a welcome return to the top 10 shootout and did very, very well. Scaife couldn't quite get there. He said his lap was a B-grade lap, but he's got a great race car. And other notables in that top 10, Paul Morris, Jason Richards, terrific to see him in there. A miraculous comeback after Queensland Raceway, and Stephen Johnson in there as well. Time to talk about this track. It's a challenging one, and no one knows it better than our Neil Crompton.
Good afternoon, Lee. Good afternoon, everybody. This is a complex track, but everybody loves it, fans and drivers alike. 2.62 kilometres, 11 turns, anti-clockwise is the direction, and here's the layout. Approaching the bump down into the kink at turn 1 at 240 kilometres an hour in 6th gear with a 3.7 to 1 diff ratio. Turn 2, 75 kilometres per hour. Beneath the unique bridge down to turn 3, up to 170 k's on the approach. Very bumpy here through 4, up and over the bridge 5 and 6. A lot of camber changes, a lot of line changes, lots of undulation, some real excitement in this track, and a lot of dirt here this weekend as well off the racing line. Through the final corner, back to the front straight, that's a lap of Oran Park.
And the cars roll in preparation for today's opening event. The two 140 kilometres, who will come out on top? As we take a look at our Talon Tough Tools starting grid, you've already seen the results of the top 10 shootout. Lowndes was very close, a little bit disappointed in the end with his lap. He knows that he's got a good car. Tander rebounded after somewhat of a slow qualifying session to make the 10. That was a relief for him. Both HSV dealer team cars there. And John Bow is having a pretty decent weekend as well. He said, I don't really know why, but the car rolled out very good and we're pretty quick right from the get-go. Neil, in the past, and with this length of race here at this track sometimes, we have seen, well, not all the most exciting racing in V8 Supercars. Do you think it'll change today?
One of the reasons for that is it's such a difficult track to set up for because there are so many unique elements to this whole thing. And for example, around this circuit, Lee, you only spend 30% of the lap at 100% throttle. So it places a premium on the way in which the chassis is balanced and how you get your car working. And yesterday afternoon and this morning, a lot of frustrated drivers as they tried to work out how to get their most from their car.
Beautiful day here in Sydney. Great day to go racing. We say good afternoon to Greg Rust.
Lee, Jason Richards' Queensland accident registered almost 6G. It cost Dodo Racing $180,000 to fix. 13 staff work 14-hour days for a fortnight to repair car 3. The upside, it's fast-tracked some new developments, but Richards will race in pain, nursing a cracked rib. Darryl?
Frustration is the word with Super Cheap still. This team's struggling at their circuit with those cars since they went to the HMS engines. Greg Murphy really has only had one test day since they went to that new engine in that car, and it was wet, so they're lacking time and information. There will be a test after this race. They start from 18th and 30th on the grid.
It's an Ambrose, Rick Kelly front row. It's a Scaife Lowndes second row, and it's Ingall Richards the third. How good is this? The big guns are firing at the front.
And Kelly benefiting from a very good test recently at Phillip Island in the HSV dealer team car.
Will Scaife get a good start from the second row? Can he apply pressure to Ambrose? Round 8 is ready to fire. Huge crowd here at Oran Park, and the last sprint round before the Enduro, Scaife bogs it down. He's lost 4, 5, 6 positions as Ambrose skips away from pole. Kelly tucks in behind. Lowndes got the advantage over Ingall as well.
Awesome start from Marcus Ambrose. Dreadful start, Mark Scaife. If it didn't actually stop, it went close to it. He finally got it alive again, and he's now buried in the pack, and he's dropped the best part of a dozen or more places.
So too is his teammate Todd Kelly. He didn't get away all that well either, but Ambrose has already got 4 car lengths on Rick Kelly in the HSV dealer team machine. Bright's in the middle of the pack. And look how tight it is. Back there, Greg Ritter, Anthony Tratt. Tight and tough on the opening lap.
Because it's been so dry in and around Sydney in the recent past, anybody that wanders offline here is going to find a very dusty, dirty racetrack. And look at the margin enjoyed by Ambrose, working turn 8 already.
Something that he hasn't done all year, as I mentioned at the top of the show. He has dominated the entire weekend. Fastest in practice, fastest in qualifying, fastest in the shootout. He is on fire here. The Zinger replay with Scaife going nowhere.
Yeah. Look at the whole field just streaming by, and his blood pressure will have boiled at that point. Starts have been a real weakness for Scaife and HRT this year.
On the first lap, Ambrose has gapped them by 1.4 seconds. And the battle is on here between Tander and Stephen Johnson. Right in behind is Jason Richards, then Todd Kelly, then Paul Morris. And Scaife back in 17th.
So all that good work done by him in the early part of the weekend, totally obliterated. There he is, on board, exiting turn 3, across the little bumps there, the motorcycle circuit to the right, and then there's a rejoin just here, and there's a few bumps where it rejoins.
Neil, just quickly, it's interesting, race the HRT. The word is, the only thing that come out of Mark's mouth then was there was no 5-second board before the start, so we need to have a look at that.
Okay, well, generally there's an indication signalled by the starter that the lights are about to be triggered. Meanwhile, Rick Kelly, second position, 1.4 seconds adrift at the end of the previous lap. Marcus is just disappearing into the horizon there at the moment.
Craig Lowndes runs third in the 888 Better Electrical Ford. He is the sole Better Electrical Falcon this weekend. His teammate Stephen Ellery had a very heavy accident yesterday, heavy impact I should say, with the wall. The car was too badly damaged to compete today.
And Rick got well wide there at turn 2. That was looking from Craig Lowndes' car on the exit of 2. Rick managed to gather it back up and get it back online, but he dropped a couple of car lengths in the process. That was a heavy impact that Steve Ellery had with the concrete wall down at the final turn, turn 11. I was standing down there in that first practice session. He caught the brake and landed the accelerator as he jumped on the brakes on a hot lap and just steamed straight into the wall. Big damage on that car. It'll take some time to repair.
I was talking with Craig Lowndes' engineer, Campbell Little, yesterday, and he said, we feel that we've got our relationship right now. Not that they ever didn't get on, but they now understand each other, which you know so well is so important.
Pit lane drive-through penalty for car 2, Mark Scaife. Can you believe it? Some days just go upside down right from the very beginning. So I've just heard race control confirming that Mark Scaife will be given a drive-through for jumping the start. So he must have flinched, stopped, and then gone again.
Rubbing salt into the wounds. Pressure's on here, though. Look at Lowndes. He's lining up Rick Kelly, and he needs to get by him, which he does right now. He draws alongside, but Kelly has the inside run.
Yeah, this will be awkward on the outside down here in 3, but that's the second time in a row that Rick's not been able to stop it.
And Lowndes knows that Ambrose is skipping away. Ambrose already has a 2.5 second gap. There he is, way up the road.
Oh, close. And Scaife on the radio suggesting that race control didn't get that call right. And,
were they the words?
Actually, it was pretty controlled, but frustrated nonetheless. But this is a great battle for second and third. Turn 7, then down in the gully to turn 8. They straddle the curb here and use that little bit of concrete to the left. Kelly second, Lowndes third. Ingle a watching brief in 4th. He's right behind this. And then Stephen Richards. Garth Tander.
It's on now. Look at Lowndes, he's lining him up again. It's only a matter of time before Lowndes leaps onto Rick Kelly, but good straight line speed from the HSV dealer team Commodore.
Spent some time after the practice session with both Craig Lowndes and his engineer Campbell Little. He's lining up here. Lee, will he get Rick Kelly? But the main thing they were trying to do was get that car compliant with some crucial bumps around this circuit, particularly, Neil, the one that leads up onto the bridge here. Lowndes says you have to go right across it. You can't go offline as you line up for that bump.
Guess who is rubbing his hands together as he executes the pass? Ambrose put a second on these guys in that last lap. It's now out to 3.4 seconds. Now the chase begins for Craig Lowndes. Scaife in.
And there's Mark taking that drive-through penalty. Car number 12 has also been given a black flag. So John Bow is going to transit the pit lane. We'll get more details on the reason why. Meantime, Lowndes did an over-under manoeuvre on Rick Kelly down at turn 3. Nice bit of driving.
But a massive lead already after the first 6 laps of 5 seconds to Marcus Ambrose over Lowndes. Lock up from Kelly.
I reckon that Rick's struggling with a near to full load of fuel in this car. They've got 100 odd litres of fuel for the start of this race, and the car is struggling where he unweights the inside front tyre going into the braking areas, so he's particularly vulnerable down there at turn 2. He locked it up badly that time. Russell's having a big nibble at him at the moment. I think what they'll need to do is make a little tweak on that car as now Todd Kelly comes in for his compulsory stop to try and tidy it up. Obviously he'll burn a little bit of the load down as he goes, using about 1.7 litres per lap.
And that pit window is quite a large one this year. Lap 5 to 37 last year. From memory, I think it was between lap 20 and 30, which was only a very narrow window. But this battle is raging, and there's a very, very positive and enthusiastic Stephen Richards sitting right behind this guy, because those guys haven't really done that well here at Oran Park in the past few years. They were very buoyant and upbeat about the fact that they made the top 10 shootout. Rick Kelly is in.
We need to watch to see whether they make an adjustment to that car.
That stop of Todd Kelly's was just on 3.8 seconds, but crucially, boys, they put on brand spanking new rear tyres. They were waxy, they were green, they hadn't even turned a lap of the Oran Park circuit. New rears on Todd Kelly's car.
Stephen Richards is showing very good pace here as well. The fastest man on the track at the moment, clearly Marcus Ambrose. That's a 5-second margin across the line last time. Here's Rick.
While pit stops are executed, the order is Ambrose, Lowndes, Ingalls, Stephen Richards, Garth Tander, Steve Johnson, Greg Murphy and Paul Morris.
Didn't spot any changes to the car. Jason Richards in and out. So lots of people electing to get the stop done early. Oh, big damage here for Winterbottom's car, front left. And the Ford 80 that's across the top of the windscreens on all the cars relates to Ford's 80th birthday celebration marketing motor vehicles in this country, and also the 80th year the company's been involved with the Geelong Football Club. Oil on the bridge, both Britec cars are off, so there's oil on the road there somewhere, and it's tricked a couple of people towards the back of the pack.
And I think that was coming from Mark Winterbottom's car when they were pushing it down pit lane. There was oil sprinkling out, dripping out from behind. Pressure is on. Russell Ingall. And there's the radio call. Oil on the bridge, be careful. This race is done for Mark Winterbottom,
who got engaged in the last couple of days.
Frosty should bounce back in the next one. Meanwhile, this is a pretty intriguing battle. Pressure is on here. Lowndes is trying his best to eat into Ambrose's lead, but it's not working. It's out to 5.2 seconds. No one can stop the points leader at the moment. And Tander is serviced and gone. So too Jason Bargwanna. So they're all diving in pretty early in what is that large period of time where you must complete your compulsory pit stop for tyres. Here's the second place Craig Lowndes, most recent round winner. Did it beautifully at Queensland Raceway.
2 HSV drivers went for different options there. Rick Kelly went for 4 tyres, Garth Tander for 2, and also watching here in the drivers coming off the bridge there where the oil was, a lot of them using the curbs around here, and a lot of dust in the air and dirt on the racetrack.
The amount of dirt on the racetrack is staggering, particularly over at the dog leg at the top of the flip-flop turns 9 and 10. Last lap for Marcus Ambrose was a 1 minute 11.8. It was an 11 neat for Craig Lowndes, so he took 3/4 of a second odd from him on that lap. And their peak speed was a 9.4 for Ambrose. He's done the fastest lap of the race at a 9.8 for Lowndes. What's interesting about this track, Lee, is that how quickly the time burns away. In other words, you get a big time loss drop here in only a few laps of competition. It does hurt the tyres, and in particular the right rear. It works the car very hard. You can see from the onboard shot in Marcus's car, just never-ending left and right and undulations. It works the tyres hard, so the cars slide around a lot, and as more and more of this dirt gets dragged onto the road as people try and curb hop, it makes the place slipperier, so you're not going to see brilliant lap times today.
And you know this by how many thousands of laps did you do around here in the Wayne Gardner car?
Well, there's a few little grooves around here. I know the song with my eyes closed.
4.7 seconds, the lead margin to this man. It's the same two that went head-to-head at Queensland Raceway, Ambrose v Lowndes, but it's the reverse order. The Devil Racer is on top at the moment. He was in the United States last weekend for one of the best events in motor racing, the Brickyard 400 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Thoroughly enjoyed that experience. Jetted back home to get back on task, and he's been very vocal this weekend about, at the moment, it's all about V8 Supercars. He doesn't want to talk NASCAR. He's focused on winning 3 consecutive championships. And Richards is serviced.
Quick, so just be aware he's going to be on the inside of you.
There you go, flicks the switch off at the pit out there where that white line and the cone note the end of the pit lane. And then blending back on down here at turn 2. You've got to be very careful as you blend back because it brings you to the very spot where the cars are on race line approaching turns 1, 2. And over the years we've seen some high-speed impacts there with carelessness. So all drivers are glued to the mirror as they come out. They watch very carefully for cars approaching at 240 kilometres per hour.
Garth Tander rejoins behind Mark Scaife. There's Todd Kelly. Reason the HSV dealer team boys are going pretty well this weekend. Well, Tander's been in a purple patch lately, but Kelly, they did a recent test at Phillip Island, and they had some pretty encouraging results from that test in the lead up to the Enduros. So a lot more smiles in the HSV camp this weekend. I'll tell you a dramatic comeback, Neil, in the opening portion of this race is from Greg Murphy. He sits 5th at the moment. Obviously, there are people jumped out of the order like this guy because of pit stops, but Murphy has found some speed overnight.
Wait, clear, go. All right, mate, get on it, you got a big...
And Russell was calling for some more support in the rear of the car. He probably wanted the roll centre up at the rear, but Barry called him back and said, just fiddle with the anti-roll bars, please, otherwise it'll knock your tyres around. And it's really a question of longevity here and making sure that the rubber stays alive, and that battle reignites again with Stephen Richards.
But in the reverse order, Neil. Richards couldn't get by him on track. Richards pitted first. Russell has come out behind Stephen Richards. So, advantage, the Castrol Perkins Commodore.
Well, the pit entry here can be difficult to see at times, particularly when it's congested. Mark Winterbottom, what happened?
I was coming out of the last corner and I got a late pit call, and when I jumped on the brakes I locked the rears, and the car in front kept going straight and then come up to seat a lot quicker than what I thought, and smacked him in the rear. So pretty disappointing because we actually made a few spots up then, and Dick Glenn, he was in no fault of his own. So
It'll be right for the next race, Mark?
I hope so, yeah. It was a decent hit, so it'd be interesting to see if they can get it fixed, but you just feel pretty crap because you mess Glenn's race up too, you know, so pretty disappointing.
Guys, just very quickly, to Mark Webber's father, Alan, a guest here in the Orcon garage at present.
So I'm a little bit confused there, but it sounds as though Winterbottom hit him on the pit in, so
yes.
He's got Seaton at pit in as well, because I noticed that Glenn's dropped off the timing completely, so there must be sufficient damage to the back of the West Point Ford for him to be out of business as well.
Which is almost what Mark Scaife did, you remember last year when he was chasing Ambrose, and then he aborted his pit stop run.
And David Bernard being rounded up here by Marcus Ambrose. At one point, when I was involved with the Driver Safety Committee, we looked at different options to try and make the pit in a bit safer at Oran Park. It's very difficult with the configuration of the track the way it currently is to try and make that easier and safer for drivers and officials and spectators. But it's caught a few drivers over the years, and there's a shot of it there as they come through like a chicane as they come off turn 11 and parallel down the straight for a little while and then in.
Dick Johnson Racing Falcon, the famous 17 of Stephen Johnson, in for his stop. He was third on track before doing this.
They're going to do rear tyres here, and I've also had a word to the team manager, and Curl tells me that although it was a big hit to Glenn Seaton's car and some big damage on the back of it, Glenn is not reporting any handling irregularities with the 18 car.
Spoke with Dick Johnson yesterday, and he's very pleased with his two drivers this year. They're both in the top 10 in the championship points, heading into the big end of the year. Sandown Bathurst coming up, the Better Electrical 500 in a month's time, and then of course the Super Cheap Auto 1000 at Bathurst. Can't wait for those.
Okay, Paul, come back to a nice rhythm. Try and look after your tyres.
So it's Ambrose, Lowndes, Morris, Bright, Wilson, Radicic, McConville, Brad Jones. That's the top 10 at the moment. Nice work.
Very good stop. They've done such a great job all season. This is a critical lap now for Marcus. Needs to get a good clean one tucked away with no traffic interruptions, no mistakes. He had a margin when he came in front of Craig. See that Russell's car just leaping up and down on that inside curbing there in the gutter of turn 2.
Now the interesting one to watch from here will be Craig Lowndes and where he pops back out.
He's coming into pit lane now. Lowndes is going to be in for his compulsory stop.
So you saw where Ambrose re-entered the circuit. He had probably 100 metres or so, maybe more, on Stephen Richards and Russell Ingall, who have both completed their compulsory stops. But where will this man pop back out after his compulsory stop? Lowndes is in the pit lane. Oh no! That is costly. What, 2-3 seconds there?
You're free to go, mate.
He was waiting for one of the Brightex boards.
Watch your pit speed, please. Watch your pit speed.
Yeah, they were talking to Craig.
CPS light.
They were talking to Craig about that.
That is such a shame, Neil. The stop itself to get those rears on 2.54 I had it, and it may have been just slightly longer. A great stop by the team, but drama there as Matthew White exited the Brightex pit. He had to wait for Matthew to depart. I can tell you there was no other changes to the 888 car.
That put him right in the teeth of this battle with Stephen Richards and Russell Ingall, though. And had that been a heartbeat longer, he would have gone behind these cars. That was very costly.
He is lucky there, Neil. You're right as well, but he does have some traffic ahead of him. Also, the thing with Ambrose, when he went back out, it was like he was leading the race, so he's still got some clear racetrack in front of him.
He had no one in front, no one behind. It was the perfect pop-out point for Marcus. But now Lowndes will have to do it a little tougher. Richards, Ingall, right on his hammer.
I don't think he realised that there was going to be the bottleneck that was appearing there, because they were calling him saying, watch for the car exiting. And right at the very end, he just had to leap on the brakes, pull it to a complete stop. Here's the order. Several people still haven't taken their compulsory tyre stop. There's Marcus Ambrose back in 7th. When they all take that stop, he's likely to be the man at the top of the pop charts.
Russell Ingall lining up Stephen Richards. He wants through, but it's not going to be that easy.
A pretty disappointed Roland Dane has just walked from his pit bunker into the garage next door and had a word to Adam Laws, the crew chief at Brightex, and he's expressed his disappointment with the way that whole situation was handled. To make it a little worse too, guys, when Matthew balked and stopped, he left a whole heap of dirt on his pit entry here, and it made it a little tricky for Lowndes as he fired in.
Greg, just explain it, just clear it up. Is the Brightex pit further up the lane than the 888 one, and he was coming through Lowndes' box, or how did it work?
If you are going in the direction of normal race traffic, the Brightex pit bunker is one of the first ones you come to. In fact, it's about the 4th in the queue. The one directly next door, further down the pit lane, is 888. So White was in getting service. Lowndes arrived. White was just about to peel out, and it was, stop-start scenario, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Just bad luck, bad timing.
Well, I mean, that's something that they needed to manage before it got to that point. Down the inside for Lowndes on Alex Davison. And the two crew chiefs will often coordinate it when two pit bunkers are side by side. They'll go and talk to each other, and they'll make sure that their cars are pitting one lap apart. Somewhere along the line, neither of those teams have talked to each other. No point talking about it afterwards.
Here's the shopping list yet to pit. Bright, Wilson, McConville, Wills and Ritter. Ambrose is 6th on the track, but the first in the order to have executed his compulsory stop. And for race leader right now, Jason Bright, he's got a brand new car on the way. They'll have that for the Better Electrical 500 at Sandown. A test at Phillip Island coming up. David Brabham will fly out from England, and Cameron McLean will join the team as well. So they'll get time in that new car. They'll get time with the team, I should say. And of course, Bright and Ritter will share that new one.
Incidentally, on the subject of the Better Electrical 500 at Sandown, children under 16 will be admitted free on the Friday, thanks to an offer made by Ford. It's the Ford Free Friday, and there's some giveaways there as well. So if you're watching us in the Melbourne or Victorian market and you're intending to go to Sandown, a great opportunity to get closer to V8 supercar racing.
Does that mean Darryl gets in for free?
Line ball, that one.
And Greg Murphy, well, the weekend is taking a positive turn. Boy, he was lost for words yesterday afternoon when we went down there to do some work for the 5th quarter. And I saw his engineer, Steve Henderson. I said, have you got the magic wand? And he said, no, but if you find one, tell me about it. We need to wave it over the car tonight. But whatever they've changed in the handling and the setup of the Super Cheap Commodore, it's working because Murphy is performing better than yesterday, that's for sure. As always, Super Cheap's Muscle Mania competition is a good one to be involved in. And for all you guys and girls who have spent more than $30 at a Super Cheap Auto store and you've already entered the V8 Muscle Car Mania comp, here's your chance for some bonus entries. SMS the code word this weekend, which is Murph, as many times as you want. And the number is 19775151. And for our Kiwi viewers, SMS 8844. The code word is Murph, and this week's winner will receive the opportunity to be a part of Super Cheap's pit crew for the V8 races during the Lexmark Indy 300. Get involved in that competition, it's a brilliant one. Murph dives up the inside of one of the Gary Rogers machines.
Yeah, so he's just outside the top 10 at the moment. He's got Rick Kelly right behind.
Brake fired, 8.0.
And he's rocking along not too bad, but has been frustrating for him. A little safety tap of the brake to make sure that he's got pedal pressure approaching the bumps at turn 1. Bit of news in the last couple of weeks since we last joined you, looking at Jason Richards here. Various finalised driver pairings having been announced. For example, Steve Johnson and Glenn Seaton won't drive together at Sandown and Bathurst. Steve will be with Will Davison. Glenn will be with Dean Canto. Paul Radisich and Paul Morris will drive together in the Sirame Wine entry. John Clelland's coming back for Team BOC with Dale Breed. He's coming back from the UK.
He's a great character,
He's a
isn't he?
funny guy. He's a great bloke. Alan Menuel will join Matt Halliday at Orcon. Phil Skyfleet and Lee Holdsworth at Gary Rogers Motorsport. And an interesting one this from Team Australia, from the Champ Car side of the racing universe. Alex Tagliani and Marcus Marshall will be making the journey for the Sandown 500 and the Bathurst 1000.
Neil, can I jump off the back of that? There's some news that I've heard that's not really out there at the moment, but Will Davison will be testing for Team Australia at Portland on Wednesday.
Wow.
And there's a bit of talk there about that. Also, Todd Kelly, he's out of this race. That car's got gearbox issues. He's caught out on the circuit. And Craig Gore on his team for improvement. He sent a mechanic home and escorted him to the airport and told him to go away and we'll pay the contract out. So that team looking for better engineers and improvement as the results weren't there.
So they mean business. There's the man at the moment though, Marcus Ambrose. His pace is very impressive. The car is impressive. He is smooth at the moment. Wow, we've just heard though, black flag to this guy.
Yeah. Now that tips everything upside down.
Pit lane speed infringement for Marcus Ambrose. That changes the complexion of the race.
Marcus, we're going to drive-through penalty exceeding the pit lane speed limit. Drive-through penalty, speed limit.
The sooner you do it, the better. And he doesn't agree with it.
I think I just got a black flag for Paul for pit.
He's talking with Paul Forgy.
That's right, in the speeding in pit lane.
Grabbing second gear as he goes down to turn 2. He's just computing all that at the moment, thinking, what? What's all that about? And sometimes it comes as a very unsettling thing when you're in a rhythm, particularly if you're in a position like this, leading the motor race effectively. And
so one hiccup to Lowndes, one hiccup to Ambrose. That really plays in the favour of Lowndes, Richards and Ingle now. Caught up in some traffic at the back, and Russell is frustrated. He's tangling there with Matthew White in the Fujitsu Ford. And now makes quick, clean work of that.
Lee, I can tell you in the interim, Jason Bright has been in for service, 3.65 seconds. They threw some new rear tyres at that car. And I spent a bit of time talking to his engineer, Bill Keeling. He said we've really struggled at the rounds where we've had a lot of bumps to contend with, particularly, the venues like Willowbank and here at Oran Park. Jason likes quite a precise car, a car that offers a lot of support. So FPR has spent their time, he says, just working to find a consistency. Rather than going for glory, they want a consistent car for Bright. That car making its last appearance next week or this weekend. New car online for the Sandown 500.
Watch this, because Ambrose had about a 9-second margin over Lowndes, but it is a long pit lane. Where will he pop back out on the racetrack?
Watch your speed.
Definitely disappointing as the SBR crew look on, and Jimmy Stone here. The one thing you can only really find here, Neil, is that the last half of this pit lane is a steep downhill run, but team very surprised.
okay, well, just to add a little bit more news here, folks. Craig Lowndes has also been given a black flag for a drive-through penalty. So all the key contenders running foul of either jumping the start or pit lane infringements today. Yes, the downhill pit lane could be part of it, or flicking it off a little early on the departure, or arriving too quickly and skidding across the white line at more than 40 k's. Most of the time, it's arriving too quick.
The headmaster is wielding his cane today. And Lowndes and Ambrose have felt that. Now this really plays into the favour of Stephen Richards and Russell Ingall.
Remember, coming into this round, if you're watching at the top of the show when we threw up the points table, Stephen Richards second, just trotting along nicely at the moment.
Lowndes is in. Visor up for a moment. Boy, how hard is this to cop, mate? How hard have you got to control yourself?
Well, I mean, obviously it's real easy to throw a leg out of bed and go completely cranky, but clearly you've got to try and keep your head down and just get the job done.
It's a bit hard for me at the moment.
There's 30 laps to go, 30 laps to go.
We've got yellows being displayed there, so there must be some aggravation at the northern end of the circuit. There's the control line where the pit lane speed limiter is flicked off, and away he goes. And just look how grubby it is off the immediate racing line right around this track.
3 drivers, take that to 2 drivers yet to complete their stop at the top of the order, Simon Wilson, Greg Ritter. And all of this action and activity, and we're not yet halfway through this race.
Craig Lowndes has his own fan club, and a couple of members of that, Paul and Chris Manson of Warhope, just west of Port Macquarie, got to join him climbing the Sydney Harbour Bridge on Friday.
Boys, I've just spoken to Roland Dane. He's not a real happy camper. He believes outfits like the Stone Brothers and his at 888 would have their setup calibrated to run right on the limit, not to exceed 40 k's. He was reluctant to point the finger, but he said, "Gee, you've got to suggest that it could be an operator error, don't you, in terms of the sighting or the picking of the speed limit being broken."
And the Castrol team hasn't enjoyed much success at this racetrack over the years. And talking with Joe and the gang down there yesterday, he said, "We're just pleased to be in the top 10, and I'm sure I can say that they never imagined they would be in a lead position lap 36 of 54 here at Oran Park, round 8 of the championship." But that's why Stephen Richards is so good. He's consistent and he's fast.
11.9 last lap for Stephen, 11.8 for Russell Ingall, 12 even for Greg Murphy, 11.7 for Rick Kelly. Replay of an incident earlier, Zinger replay at turn 2, Garth Tan and Brad Jones getting together, arguing over the same piece of real estate, and that probably did damage. Yes, it did, because that's now been rectified. He's departing the pit lane, so that'll be a front right-hand corner steering arm damage on the HSV dealer team car. So Stephen's only got half-second margin at the moment. He cannot afford to make one tiny mistake with Russell sitting right there. Then there's a bit of a breather back, about 5 seconds or thereabouts, to Greg Murphy, who would not have believed that he could be in that position. I spoke to him yesterday. Meantime, after the drive-through penalty for Marcus Ambrose, he's climbed his way back up to 6th position. Which just goes to show, a remarkable performance. But if you've got car speed, you've got everything in this business. So he's going to get out of jail here, because 6th position, 81 points. Certainly he loses a little of his championship margin, but it's not catastrophic. Now, Craig Lowndes also copped a drive-through penalty. And you've got to look further down the order for Craig. He's in 16th at the moment, bottled up behind Max Wilson, and he can't do much about him at the moment. He's been on the radio complaining that I just can't get through the traffic. Marcus has been able to get a better fist of it.
And the traffic up ahead, Neil, includes Paul Wheel, Paul Radisich, Paul Morris. They've been having a fabulous battle for several laps.
That was that smiling voice in the background of Craig Lowndes, okay. And looking further down, if you're a Holden Racing Team fan, Mark Scaife is 21st after fudging the start in the Holden Racing Team Commodore.
Lowndes thought about lunging on the inside of the Wow Sight and Sound Commodore. It didn't work. Wheels defending from Wilson, and Lowndes lining up for a shot. It's a hard way to find any avenue through.
And don't for a minute think that because these guys are down in 20th position, then it's any less spirited than it might be up the front. In fact, very often it's the other way around. There's more aggression at the back of the pack. So this will be very difficult for Lowndes, despite having shown some car speed early on. Unless you've got massive amount of margin over the other guy, it's very, very difficult to be able to use it to good effect.
To update you with who's who, who's where. Richards and Ingle 1 and 2. Murphy's 3rd. Rick Kelly is 4th. Jason Richards is 5th. That's wonderful for the Dodo team. 6 is Ambrose. 7 is Johnson. 8 is Bright. That's a good comeback for the FPR man. Lowndes is through on Wilson. And behind him is Parkwana and McConville. That's the 10.
Neil, confirming your information from earlier on. I've just been chasing the speed infringements with Lowndes and Ambrose down in pit lane here. I said to the person on the exit pit lane, is this where the speed was recorded? They said, no, it was up at the entry. So you were right there. It was definitely the entry to the pits.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Steve Owen's off the road here. He was complaining of some steering problems. And he came into the pit before for them to have a bit of a look at that problem. Greg?
Neil, just in the meantime, a number of the key engineers have been on the radio, most notably Barry Hay, Russell Ingle's man. He's just coaching his driver right now. He's saying, come on, keep going, keep chipping away. You are making ground here. And he doesn't think it's out of the question that Ingle will get by at some point Stephen Richards.
Other thing to bear in mind, chaps, is that Rick Kelly, as I try and throw my radio off the desk here, Rick Kelly also took on 4 tyres, did he not, earlier? So as we get to the latter phase of this race, he'll be reasonably strong as well, and he's lurking there in 4th. Talking of the Kellys, one guy that we also need to refer to is Todd Kelly in the second of the HRT cars. A gearbox problem has put him out of business for this race. And he's down the order at the moment. So a weird one when you look at the way they lined up at the start of this, and it's on here. Lowndes getting down the inside of Paul Wheel.
Should give Paul Wheel a pat on the back too. He started in 30th and Wheel is now in 13th. That's a mighty effort, and his teammate Greg Murphy, coming into the last lap of qualifying yesterday, he was 23rd, he jumped to 18th, and he's now gone from 18th to 3rd. Good drive, Murph.
Paul Morris is complaining of a lot of vibration in the Sirame Wine entry car as well. Paul's down the order a little bit at the moment, but he's quite vocal. He's 20th, saying that the car's got some real problems, so they'll need to take a look at that. There's the leaders.
Russell Ingle was victorious at Castrol Perkins Racing in race 1 back in 2000 here.
They're bleeding speed off, which is real. It's a real hallmark of this racetrack. It happens every time they come here. But the speed you see with new tyres in the early part of the weekend in qualifying, Paul Morris, they're getting out of the car with whatever that vibration is. He felt that it was some sort of a steering drama. We're looking now at 12.3 for Stephen Richards last lap, 12.5 for Russell Ingle, 12.1 Greg Murphy. So Greg's actually the shining star of the pack. And an 11.9 last lap for Rick Kelly. So remember I said he'd have speed in the latter part of this race. He's showing it at the moment, but he's still got a lot of margin to make up before he's in touch with these guys.
Drivers are drivers. They always drive at 110%. So we need to give the guys in the garage, perhaps at Super Cheap Auto, Steve Henderson, the engineer, and his men, a pat on the back for what they've done overnight. Whatever he and Greg have talked about in the debrief after qualifying yesterday to turn this car around. But Ambrose is flying further back. He's elevated himself to 5th.
It's all about rhythm at this racetrack and just flowing the car. Here's Greg Ritter down the inside of Glenn Seaton at turn 3, and that hasn't worked out. Contact, but no great damage done. They get on with the job. Here's Ambrose coming down the inside for 6th position. 5th position, make that, on Jason Richards at turn 2. They argued on the way to turn 3, but then he got the job done.
And Seaton says, will everybody stop hitting me from behind?
He's had one of those days.
He's been the whipping boy today, but still, he's fighting for a top 15 spot. And he is in the top 10 in the points, so whatever you can grab, whatever you can salvage, even though things go wrong, it's very, very important. Lowndes has got by Stephen Johnson, so his progress continues, and this is in the top 10. 9th and 10th respectively.
Lowndes has really had to huff and puff to get his car inside the top 10. He's really worked hard. It's not been an easy task for him. Here's where he got the job done at the final corner, turn 11, down the inside of his buddy Stephen Johnson and out the other side. So a remarkable recovery for both Marcus Ambrose and Craig Lowndes. Other drivers that took a penalty included Mark Scaife and John Bowe. Scaife's up to 17th, John Bowe to 20th.
Rub your hands together. It bodes well for race 2.
Those guys here a couple of laps.
You got quick guys starting a little further back that will be coming through the pack.
The next one in the gun sights for Craig Lowndes is Cameron McConville. and he's a little further up the road. So Lowndes now impatiently trying to get through on Matthew White. They're going to go side by side to the dog leg. That's awkward, but Matthew fortunately just yields on the throttle temporarily. And then you can see the Valvoline car just in the foreground. There he is, a little glimpse of McConville. So Lowndes, with only 5 laps to go, has got a lot of work to do to try and get to him. There's the leaders. They're on the way to turn 4, Greg.
Neil, you mentioned earlier in our Race 1 coverage about how aggressive driving over some of the sawtooth curbing here at Oran Park can be quite bad as far as race cars are concerned. Paul Morris has withdrawn with steering damage, we believe, linked to that. And check this out. This is off Steve Owen's car. They've had a lower control arm brake. I feel like I'm Tony Greig here with the car keys in the pitch for a second. But that lower control arm has driven like a wedge into this rim and completely severed the metal, deflated the tyre.
Yikes.
To make matters worse, when they pitted and tried to take the captive wheel nut off. Look at the teeth on the captive wheel nut that sit inside the wheel. They've absolutely sheared off there. Tough day at the office for Steve Owen and many others with steering dilemmas. Darryl?
You speak of Steve Owen, Greg, and that mention as well. I've been watching him the last 5 or 6 laps. He is still stuck onto the back of Ingle there. He's in with that group even though he's not in race order, so he's showing good pace right now. But the man Ambrose is really reeling in that front bunch. He probably won't get to the top 3, but he's right up against the other field now.
And Russell's starting to really apply pressure. He's decided that he can afford to risk flat spotting a tyre. He had a big look then at turn 2, but he couldn't get the job done. He carried a bit of speed and then couldn't change the line of the car to get down the inside at 2. But that's a good pick-up, Greg. It's exactly what happens at this racetrack. If you're too aggressive and you actually end up on the wrong side of the curbing, it can do big damage. How's the way that lower control arm just machined its way through the rim.
We saw Bright drop a wheel off yesterday during his qualifying lap and went too far off. The inside of that curbing is very harsh. Tell you who's looming in the background is Greg Murphy. He's got Steve Owen in between he and Russell Ingall, but Murphy is making up ground in these closing laps.
He's got the headlights ablaze. Remember, we were talking about the fact that he had pace towards the end, so probably suggests that he had a car that was a bit neutral or maybe even understeery, but it's actually gone on quite well through the race, whereas the 2 lead guys, you can tell their cars are a little slippery in the rear now. They're generating a little bit too much oversteer. Matthew White's going to step sideways here and allow Greg to come through. So it could become a 3-way stoush at the end.
And at no stage yesterday did Greg Murphy ever imagine he would be in this position.
But he's like that, isn't he? I can remember at Simmons Plains last year, you know, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's an emotional driver. He's got a huge heart. Great result for him in New Zealand earlier in the year. When things are bad for Greg, they're very bad. But within a very short space of time, it can turn around. He knows he's like that. That's just part of his character. One of the reasons why he's so popular.
He never sugarcoats anything, does he?
No.
You know where you're at with him,
See,
and you know how he feels.
Talking before about the lead cars sliding a lot. And if you saw the back of Stevens' car coming off the bridge then, Larry looking on, he was really working to keep the thing straight, but the whole rear of the car just sliding across the road. So he's gliding it as best he can at the moment, trying not to get too much attitude on it, but trying to keep it pressing on. They're at a point now where they don't care about the rear tyre life. They're holding position. They're fighting for position. Look, if you put a little flat spot on the inside front, so what? They're after position. But they're also experienced enough, these 3 top guys out there at the moment, that they won't do anything dumb and then sacrifice a first, a second or a third.
The last time Stephen Richards won was in WA at Barbagallo, and it was Russell Ingall, the same man he was fighting. Here's Ambrose, and he's got Rick Kelly in his sights.
I tell you what, that's
what
amazing.
A comeback.
On a wide shot there, to see the leaders followed by 1 heartbeat later, Marcus Ambrose, is actually amazing, and it tells you how much car speed he's got. Last lap for Ambrose was a 12.0. Stephen Richards was a 12.7, so he's pulling the leader in at a rate of 3/4 of a second a lap.
That's the HSV dealer team Commodore up ahead. Rick Kelly.
He's vulnerable.
4th in the order, time running out. Final couple of laps here at Oran Park.
Marcus took 2/10 out of Rick in the first third of the lap. They're in the second sector now. There's the lead guys just up the front on the exit of turn 8. This one's really heating up towards the end, folks.
What a great couple of final laps. And it's not over at the front either, because Murphy wants a shot at Ingall. Ingall wants a shot at Richards. And Murphy is well within touch now. Inside move.
Oh.
Ambrose almost got through on Rick Kelly.
Two to go. Make sure you're relaxed and having
Slides up off the final turn.
And Marcus actually backed out of it then because he could see trouble looming. He had to have a reset. Cross the bump on the one on the run to one, I should say. There's the ripple strip. Some lock brakes further ahead. Turn 2, he's right into the back of the HSV dealer team car. They'll run nose to tail on the run down here to turn 3.
Will he try and crisscross him? Goes the high side. And will he flick it back? No, there's an overlap. Now he flicks back. Tries for the inside run on Rick Kelly, but he's not close enough. Kelly defends.
Yeah, Rick was a wake-up. He held him out there. He just held him a little high so that Marcus couldn't get back across the right-hand side of the bumper. But he's got car speed to burn. He should be able to get down the inside at the final corner.
Keep it clean,
Message from Paul Forgy, keep it clean, you'll get him.
And he will, but there's 1.5 laps to go.
He needs to breathe on the throttle gently here out of turn 8, glide over the top of the flip-flop and then fire down the inside at the last corner, but he's not quite close enough at the moment. His strength is at the northern end of the circuit, not the southern end.
Final turn. They'll get notification. This is the last lap. They're running home right from here. What's Ambrose got for Kelly? What's Murphy got for Ingle? What's Ingle got for Richards?
Rick knows he's there. Rick will cover him going to turn 2. Marcus will be thinking about trying to get him at 2. It might be worth a strategy change and thinking about going underneath him at turn 3. Will Marcus stay on the race line? Yes, he does. It's a little strategy change here. So he's thought about it. Now what he'll try and do is go up the inside of Kelly when they get down here to turn 3.
Can't do it. Defensive driving from Rick Kelly. He's making it difficult for the reigning champion. Now he crisscrosses.
Looking for better drive. Rick's driving down the right-hand side of the road. Being cagey. Totally allowed to do it. Totally legal. Frustrating for Marcus with more speed, but it's a great race for us.
And it's good driving from the young guy. Rick Kelly, this is pressure situation from the number 1 man. And he's handling it. Nothing has changed up front. It's still Richards. Oh, look at Murphy on the inside of Ingle. Couldn't quite do it, but he's got the right spot. He's going to be on the high side for the dogleg. Can't stay there.
Fantastic. Side by side, Murphy's out in the dirt there, trying to hang on in third, tries to crisscross at the final corner.
Richards will win it. It's his 2nd win of the year. First of all, Barbagallo. Now the Perkins car wins it here at Oran Park. Murphy tries to drag race Ingle, can't get there. And look at this.
Got
him. Ambrose over Rick Kelly at the final turn. What a finish.
Well done, Marcus. Great drive, mate. Sensational.
4th place for Ambrose after a drive-through. Great job, these guys. Castrol Perkins Engineering team and their driver, Stephen Richards. 13.4 on the last lap, 14.1 for Ingle, 13.9 for Murphy. They're all just staggering to the end with anything they can use.
And Ambrose is not happy. Ambrose not happy. He's lost points to Stephen Richards. Richards closes the championship gap. It is hotting up at the right time of the year.
For the 2nd race, we're in with a good chance here.
That was good.
Very good. Well, I popped the question to you, mate, at the top of the show. We've had some kind of nose to tail, maybe a little bit pedestrian racing around here over the past few years, but that was a cracker.
Aided by the drive-throughs, because that certainly scrambled the pack.
Big cheers for Stephen Richards. He's a well-liked driver by the fans and his peers. Here's the overtaking move, the Zinger replay.
Oh, side, look at this. Unbelievable. He just shoved down the inside there. The two of them are all crossed up over the top. Pretty aggressive stuff from Marcus. Rick eventually just sidestepped and home they came.